Welcome, guys. The book Think and Grow Rich, and we are doing chapter 6 Organized Planning. The crystallization of desire into action. The sixth step towards riches. You have learned that everything man creates or acquires begins in the form of desire. That desire is taken on the first lap of its journey from the abstract to the concrete into the workshop of the imagination, where plans for its transition are created and organized. In chapter 2, you were instructed to take 6 definite practical steps. Chapter 2. Oh, 6 steps were in chapter 1. This is the chapter first introduction, and chapter 2 is this desire. लेट मी चेक. ये देखो, ये रही 6 की 6 स्टेप. मतलब जो मैंने उस दिन पहली वीडियो में बताया था कि ये चैप्टर 1 इधर नहीं है, और ये चैप्टर 1 मैंने गलत लिखा है क्योंकि चैप्टर 1 यहाँ से आना था. बिल्कुल मैंने बताया था उस दिन टोटल 15 चैप्टर होंगे इसमें, और आज प्रूफ भी कर दिया है. इन चैप्टर 2 you are instructed to take 6 definite practical steps. Yup. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 steps are there in chapter 1. Chapter 1, 6 definite steps. I was correct at that time. Okay, let's start again. In chapter 2, you were instructed to take 6 definite practical steps as your first move in translation for desire for money into momentary equivalent. One of these steps is the formation of a definite practical plan or plans through which this transformation may be made. You will now instructed how to build plans which will be practical. Ally yourself with a group of as many people as you need for the creation and carrying out of your plan or plans. For the accumulation of money, making use of the mastermind principle described in a later chapter. Compliance with this instruction is absolutely essential. Do not neglect it. Before forming your mastermind alliance, decide what advantages and benefits you may offer the individual members of your group. In return for their cooperation, no one will work definitely without some form of compensation. No intelligent person will either request or expect another to work without adequate compensations. Although this may not always be in the form of money, arrange to meet with the members of your mastermind group at least twice a week or more often if possible, until you have jointly perfected the necessary plans for the accumulation of money. Maintain perfect harmony between yourself and every member of your mastermind group. If you fail to carry out this instruction to the letter, you may expect to meet with failure. The mastermind principle cannot obtain where perfect harmony does not prevail. Keep in mind these facts. First, you are engaged in an undertaking of major importance to you. To be sure of success, you must have plans which are faultless. You must have plans which are faultless. Second, to be success, you must be faultless. Second, you must have the advantage of the experience, education, native ability, and imagination of other minds. This is in harmony with the methods followed by every person who has accumulated a great fortune. No individual has sufficient experience, education, native ability, and knowledge to ensure the accumulation of a great fortune without the cooperation of other people. Every plan you adopt in your endeavor to accumulate wealth should be the joint creation of yourself and every other member of mastermind group. You must originate your own plans, either in whole or in part, but see that those plans are checked and approved by the members of your mastermind alliance. If the first plan which you adopt does not work successfully, replace it with a new plan. If this new plan fails to work, replace it in turn with still another, and so on, until you find a plan which does work. Right here is the point at which the majority of men meet with failure because of their lack of persistence in creating new plans to take the place of those who fail. The most intelligent man living cannot succeed in accumulating money, nor in any other undertaking without plans which are practical and workable. Just keep this fact in mind and remember when your plans fail, that temporary defeat is not permanent failure. Temporary defeat is not permanent failure. It may only mean that your plans have not been sound. Build other plans, start all over again. Thomas Alva Edison failed 10,000 times before he perfected the incandescent electric bulb. That is, he met with temporary defeat 10,000 times before his efforts were crowned with success. Temporary defeat should mean only one thing, the certain knowledge that here is something wrong with your plan. Millions of men go through life in misery and poverty because they lack a sound plan through which to accumulate a fortune. Henry Ford accumulated a fortune because of his superior mind, but because not because of his superior mind, but because he adopted and followed a plan which proved to be sound. 1,000 men could be pointed out, each with a better education than Ford's. Yet each of whom lives in poverty because he does not possess the right plan for the accumulation of money. Your achievement can be no greater than your plans are sound. Your achievements can be no greater than your plans or sound. They may seem to be an axiomatic statement, but it is true. Samuel Insull lost his fortune of over $100 million. The Insull fortune was built on plans which were sound. The business depression forced Mr. Insull to change his plans, and the change brought temporary defeat because his new plans were not sound. Mr. Insull is now an old man. He may adequate it. The business depression forced Mr. Insull to change his plans, and the change brought temporary defeat. Because because his new plans were not sound. Mr. Insull is now an old man. He may consequently accept failure instead of temporary defeat. But if his experience turns out to be failure, it will be for the reason that he lacks the fire of persistence to rebuild his plans. No one is ever whipped until he quits in his own mind. Hmm. This fact will be repeated many times because it is so easy to take the count at the first sign of defeat. James W. Hill met with temporary defeat when he first endeavored to raise the necessary capital to build a railroad from east to the west, but he too turned defeat into victory through new plans. Henry Ford met with temporary defeat not only at the beginning of his automobile career but after he had gone far toward the top. He created new plans and went marching on to financial victory. We will see men who have accumulated great fortunes, but we often recognize only their triumph, overlooking the temporary defeat which they had to surmount before arriving. No follower of this philosophy can reasonably expect to accumulate a fortune without experiencing temporary defeat. When defeat comes, accept it as no follower of this philosophy can reasonably accept to accumulate a fortune without experiencing temporary defeat. When defeat comes, accept it as a signal that your plans are not sound. Rebuild those plans and set sail once more toward your coveted goal. If you give up before your goal has been reached, you are a quitter. Quitter never wins and a winner never quits. Lift this sentence out. Write it on a piece of paper in letters an inch high and place it where you will see it every night before you go to sleep and every morning before you go to work. Should I do this? Lift this sentence out. Write it on a piece of paper in letters an inch high and place it where you will see it every night before you go to sleep and every morning before you go to work. Wait, I'm going to do this. Where's my red pen? Here is it. Select a color, this one, this one. Which one I should do? Quitter never wins and a winner never quits. Quitter. And okay. I will paste it on my desk or anywhere else. Where should I do this? Where should I paste it? Quitter Quitter never wins and a winner never quits. Quitter never wins and a winner never quits. Okay, I will do it later. Let's focus on our chapter. I have done this task. Write it on a piece of paper in letters an inch high and place it where you will see it every night before you go to sleep and every morning before you go to work. When you begin to select members of your mastermind group, endeavor to select those who do not take defeat seriously. When you begin to select members for your mastermind group, endeavor to select those who do not take defeat seriously. Some people foolishly believe that only money can make money. This is not true. Desire transmitted into its monetary equivalent through the principles laid down here is the agency through which money is made. Money of itself is nothing but inert matter. It cannot move, think, or talk, but it can hear when a man who desires it calls it to come. Planning the safe sale of services. Planning the sale of services. Okay. Let this be done. I will create a WhatsApp group today and I will be the first member in that group. Group name will be Mastermind. I will take only those people who never quit, who do not take defeat seriously. Who do not take defeat seriously. Okay, we'll start searching for these kind of men from now. Sorry, from after this. Planning the sale of services. The remainder of this chapter has been given over to a description of ways and means of marketing personal services. The information here conveyed will be of practical help to any person having any form of personal services to market, but it will be of priceless benefit to those who aspire to leadership in their chosen occupation. Chosen occupation. Intelligent planning is essential for success in any undertaking designed to accumulate riches. Intelligent planning is essential for success in any undertaking designed to accumulate riches. Here will be found detailed instructions to those who must begin the accumulation of riches by selling personal services. It should be encouraging to know that practically all the great fortunes begin in the form of compensation of personal services or from the sales of ideas. What else except ideas and personal services would one not possessed or property have to give in return for riches? Broadly speaking, there are two types of people in the world. One type is known as leaders and the other as followers. One type of no, Two type of people in the world. One type is known as leaders and the other is known as followers. It's your choice what you want to be, leader or follower. Decide at the outset whether you intend to become a leader in your chosen calling or remain a follower. The difference in compensation is vast. The follower cannot reasonably expect the compensation to which a leader is entitled, although many followers make the mistake of expecting such pay. It is no disgrace to be a follower. On the other hand, it is no credit to remain a follower. Most great leaders begin in the capacity of followers. They become great leaders because they were intelligent followers. They became great leaders because they were intelligent followers. Most great leaders begin in the capacity of followers. Most great leaders begin in the capacity of followers. They became great leaders because they were intelligent followers. अच्छा, पहली बात तो कोशिश कीजिए कि फॉलोवर ना बने, और अगर फॉलोवर बनना है मतलब लीडर ना बनाया जाए तो इंटेलिजेंट फॉलोवर बनिए. With few exceptions, the man who cannot follow a leader intelligently cannot become an efficient leader. ओके, जो बंदा इंटेलिजेंट फॉलोवर नहीं बन सकता वो एक लीडर भी नहीं बन सकता. अच्छा लीडर. The man who can follow a leader most efficiently is usually the man who develops into leadership most rapidly. An intelligent follower has many advantages, among them the opportunity to acquire knowledge from his leader. इंटेलिजेंट फॉलोवर कौन होगा? From his leader, he got opportunity to acquire knowledge. The major attributes of leadership. Major attributes of leadership. Following are important factors of leadership. Unwavering courage based upon knowledge of self and of one's occupation. No follower wishes to be dominated by a leader who lacks self-confidence and courage. No intelligent follower will be dominated by such a leader very long. No follower wishes to be dominated by a leader who lacks self confidence and courage. No intelligent follower will be dominated by such a leader very long. Self control. Okay, these are major attributes of leadership: unwavering courage, self control, a keen sense of justice, definiteness of decision, definiteness of plans, the habit of doing more than paid for, pleasuring personality, sympathy and understanding, mastery of detail, and willingness to assume full responsibility and cooperation. Do these. Self control. The man who cannot control himself can never control others. Self control sets a mighty example for one's followers, which the more intelligent will emulate. This is a very good line. Keen sense of justice. Without a sense of fairness and justice, no leader can command and retain the respect of his followers. Definiteness of decision. The man who wavers in his decisions shows that he is not sure of himself. He cannot lead others successfully. Cannot lead others successfully. Definiteness of plans. The successful leader must plan his work and work his plan. Definiteness of success. Successful leader must plan his work and work his plan. Keen sense of justice. Without a sense of fairness and justice, no leader can command and retrain the respect of his followers. Definiteness of decision. The man who wavers in his decisions shows that he is not sure of himself. He cannot lead others successfully. Definiteness of decision. Definiteness of plans. The successful leader must plan his work and work his plan. Leader who moves by guesswork without practical definite plan is comparable to a ship without a rudder. Sooner or later, he will land on the rocks. The habit of doing more than paid for. One of the penalties of leadership is the necessity of willingness upon the part of the leader to do more than he requires of his followers. To do more than he requires of his followers. Pleasing personality. No slovenly, careless person can become a successful leader. Careless person can become a successful leader. Leadership calls for respect. Followers will not respect a leader who does not grade high on all of the factors of a pleasing personality. Sympathy and understanding. Successful leader must be in sympathy with his followers. Moreover, he must understand them and their problems. Mastery of details. Successful leadership calls for the mastery of details of the leadership's position. Mastery of detail. Successful leadership calls for mastery of detail of the leader's position. Yeah. Willingness to assume full responsibility. The successful leader must be willing to assume responsibility for the mistakes and shortcomings of his followers. If he tries to shift this responsibility, he will not remain the leader. If one of his followers makes a mistake and shows himself incompetent, the leader must consider that it is he who failed. Cooperation. The successful leader must understand and apply the principle of cooperative effort and be able to induce his followers to do the same. Leadership calls for power and power calls for cooperation. There are two forms of leadership. The first and by far the most effective is leadership by consent and with the sympathy of the followers. The second is leadership by force without the consent and sympathy of the followers. It's your choice what you have to choose. Leadership by consent and leadership by force. I think I should choose leadership by consent. History is filled with evidences that leadership by force cannot endure. The downfall and disappearance of dictators and kings is significant. It means that people will not follow forced leadership indefinitely. People will not follow forced leadership indefinitely. The world has just entered a new era of relationship between leaders and followers, which very clearly calls for new leaders and a new brand of leadership in business and industry. Those who belong to the old school of leadership by force must acquire an understanding of the new brand of leadership, cooperation, or be relegated to the rank and file of the followers. There is no other way out of them. Relationship of employer and employee or of leader and follower in the future will be one of mutual cooperation based upon an equitable division of the profits of business. In the future, the relationship of employer and employee will be more like a partnership than it has been in past. Napoleon, Kaiser Wilhelm of Germany, the Caesar of Russia, and the King of Spain were examples of leadership by force. Their leadership passed without much difficulty. The one might point to the prototypes of these ex leaders among the business, financial, and labor leaders of America who have been dethroned or slated to go. Leadership by consent of the followers is the only brand which can endure. Men may follow the forced leadership temporarily, but they will not do so willingly. The new brand of leadership will embrace the 11 factors of leadership described in this chapter as well as the same other factor. The man who makes these on the basis of his leadership will find abundant opportunity to lead in any walk of life. The depression was prolonged largely because the world lacked the leadership of the new brand. At the end of the depression, the demand for leaders who are competent to apply the new methods of leadership has greatly exceeded the supply. Some of the old type of leaders will reform and the supply. Reform and adapt themselves to the new brand of leadership, but generally speaking, the world will have to look for a new timber for its leadership. Necessity may be your opportunity. This necessity may be your opportunity. 10 major causes of failure in leadership. What not to do. We come now to the major faults of leaders who fail because it is just as essential to know what not to do as it is to know what to do. Inability to organize details, unwillingness to render humble services, expectation of pay for what they know instead of what they do with that which they know, fear of competition with followers, lack of imagination, selfishness, intemperance, disloyalty, emphasis of the authority of leadership, emphasis of title. First, inability to organize details. Effective leadership calls for ability to organize and to master details. No genuine leader is ever too busy to do anything which may be required of him in his capacity as leader. When a man, whether he is a leader or follower, admits that he is too busy to change his plans or to give attention to any emergency, he admits his inefficiency. The successful leader must be the master of all details connected with his position. That means, of course, that he must acquire the habit of relegating details to capable lieutenants. Unwillingness to render humble services. Truly great leaders are willing, when occasion demands, to perform any sort of labor which they would ask another to perform. The greatest among ye shall be the servant of all, is a truth which all the able leaders observe and respect. Expectation of pay for what they know instead of what they do with that which they know. The world does not pay men for that which they know. It pays them for what they do or induce others to do. Fear of competition from followers. The leader who fears that one of his followers may take his position in practically sure to realize that fear sooner or later. The able leader trains understudies to whom he may delegate at will any of the details of his position. Only in this way may a leader multiply himself and prepare himself to be at many places and give attention to many things at one time. It is an eternal truth that men receive more pay for their ability to get others to perform than they could possibly earn by their own efforts. An efficient leader may, through his knowledge of his job and his magnetism of his personality, greatly increase the efficiency of others and induce them to render more service and better service than they could render without his aid. Lack of imagination. Without imagination, the leader is incapable of meeting emergencies and of creating plans by which to guide his followers efficiently. Selfishness. The leader who claims all the honor of the work of his followers is sure to be met by resentment. The really great leader claims none of the honors. He is contented to see the honors, when there are any, go to his followers, because he knows that most men will work harder for commendation and recognition than they will for money alone. Intemperance. Followers do not respect an intemperance leader. Moreover, intemperance in any of its various forms destroys the endurance and the vitality of all who indulge in it. Disloyalty. Perhaps this should have come at the head of the list. The leader who is not loyal to his trust and to his associates, those above him and those below him, cannot long maintain his leadership. Disloyalty marks one as being less than the dust of the earth and brings down on one's head the contempt he deserves. Lack of loyalty is one of the major causes of failure in every walk of life. Be loyal to your plans. Be loyal to your words. Emphasize of the authority of leadership. The efficient leader leads by encouraging and not by trying to instill fear in the hearts of his followers. The leader. The leader who tries to impress his followers by his authority comes within the category of leadership through force. If a leader is a real leader, he will have no need to advertise that fact except by his conduct, his sympathy, understanding, fairness, and a demonstration that he knows his job. Emphasis of title. Con- competent leader requires no title to give him the respect of his follower. The man who makes too much over his title generally has little else to emphasize. The doors to the office of the real leader are open to all who wish to enter, and his working quarters are free from formality or ostentation. These are among the more common of the causes of failure in leadership. Any of these fault is sufficient to induce failure. 10 में से कोई भी एक हुआ ना तो फेलियर है भाई, सफिशिएंट है फेलियर के लिए. Study the list carefully if you aspire to leadership and make sure that you are free of these faults. Some fertile fields in which new leadership will be required. Before leaving this chapter, your attention is called to be a few of the fertile fields in which there has been a decline of leadership and in which the new type of leader may found find an abundance of opportunity. First, in the field of politics, there is a most insistent demand for new leaders, a demand which indicates nothing less than an emergency. The majority of politicians have seemingly become high grade, legalized racketeers. They have increased taxes and debunked the machinery of industry and business until the people can no longer stand the burden. Second, the banking business is undergoing a reform. The leaders in this field have almost entirely lost the confidence of the public already. The bankers have sensed the need of reform and they have begun. Third, industry calls for new leader. The old type of leaders thought and moved in terms of dividends instead of thinking and moving in terms of human equations. The future leader in industry to endure must regard himself as quasi-public official whose duty is to manage his trust in such a way that it will work hardship on no individual or group of individuals. Exploitating of working men is a thing of the past. Let the men who aspire to leadership in the field of business, industry, and labor remember this. For the religious leader of the future will be forced to give more attention to the temporal needs of his followers in the solution of their economic and personal problem of the present, and less attention to the dead past and the yet unborn future. Fifth, in the profession of law, medicine, and education, a new brand of leadership and to extent new leaders will become a necessity. This is especially true in the field of education. The leader in that field must in future find ways and means of teaching people how to apply the knowledge they receive in school. He must deal more with practice and less with theory. Sixth, new leaders will be required in the field of journalism. Newspaper of the future to be conducted successfully must be divorced from special privilege and relieved from the subsidy of advertising. They must cease to be organs of propaganda for the interest which patronize their advertising columns. The type of newspaper which publishes scandal and loud picture will eventually go to the way of all forces which debunch the human mind. These are but a few of the fields in which opportunities for new leaders and a new brand of leadership are now available. The world is undergoing a rapid change. This means that the media through which the changes in human habits are prompted must be adapted to the changes. The media here described are the ones which, more than any others, determine the trend of civilization. When and how to apply for a position, the information described here is the net result of many years of experience during which thousands of men and women were helped to market their services effectively. It can therefore be relied upon as sound and practical. Media through which services may be marketed. Experience has proved that the following media offer the most direct and effective methods of bringing the buyer and seller of personal services together. Employment bureaus. Care must be taken to select only reputable bureaus, the management of which can show adequate records of achievement of satisfactory results. There are comparatively few such bureaus. Advertising in newspaper, trade journals, magazines, and radio. Classified advertising may usually be relied upon to produce satisfactory results in the case of those who apply for clearer for ordinary salaried positions. Display advertising is more desirable in the case of those who seek executive connections. The copy to appear in the select section of the paper, which is most apt to come in the attention of the class of employer being sought. The copy should be prepared by an expert who understands how to inject sufficient selling qualities to produce replies. Personal letters of application directed to particular firms or individuals most apt to need such services as are being offered. Letters should be neatly typed, always and signed by hand. With the letter should be sent a complete brief or outline of the application's qualification. Both the letter of application and the brief of experience or qualification should be prepared by an expert. See instructions as to informed to be supplied. Application through personal acquaintances. When possible, the applicant should endeavor to approach prospective employers through some mutual acquaintance. This method of approach is particularly advantageous in case of those who seek executive connections and do not wish to appear to be peddling themselves. Application in person. In some instances, it may be more effective if the applicant offers personally his services to prospective employers, in which event a complete written statement of qualification for the position should be presented for the reason that prospective employers often wish to discuss with associates one's record. Information to be supplied in a written brief. This brief should be prepared as carefully as a lawyer would prepare the brief of a case to be tried in court. Unless the applicant is experienced in the preparation of such briefs, an expert should be consulted and his services enlisted for this purpose. Successful merchants employ men and women who understand the art and philosophy of advertising to present the merits of their merchandise. One who has personal services for sale should do the same. The following information should appear in the brief. Education. State briefly but definitely what schooling you have had and in what subject you specialized in school, giving the reason for that specialization. Experience. If you have had experience in connection with positions similar to one who seek describe it fully. State names and address of former employees. Be sure to bring out clearly any special experience you may have had which would equip you to fill the position you seek. References. Practically every business firm describes to know all about the previous records, antecedents, etc. of prospective employers who seek positions of responsibility. Attach to your brief photostatic copies of letters from former employers, teachers under whom you studied, prominent people whose judgment may be relied upon. Fourth, photograph of self. Attach to your brief a recent unmounted photograph of yourself. Apply for a specific position. Avoid application for a position without describing exactly what particular position you seek. Never apply for just a position. That indicates you lack specialized qualification. State your qualifications for the particularly position for which you apply. Give full details as to the reason you believe you are qualified for the particular position you seek. This is the application. It will determine more than anything else what consideration you receive. Offer to go to work on probation. In the majority of instances, if you are determined to have the position for which you apply, it will be most effective if you offer the work for a week or a month or for a sufficient length of time to enable your prospective employer to judge your value without pay. This may appear to be a radical suggestion, but experience has proved that it seldom fails to win at least a trial. If you are sure of your qualifications. A trial is all you need. Incidentally, such an offer indicates that you have confidence in your ability to fill the positions you seek. It is most convincing if your offer is accepted and you make good. More than likely, you will be paid for your probation period. Make clear the fact that your offer is based upon your confidence in your ability to fill the position, your confidence in your prospective employer's decision to employ you after trial, your determination to have the position you seek, knowledge of your prospective employer's business. Before applying for a position, do sufficient research in connection with the business of familiarize yourself thoroughly with that business and indicate in your belief the knowledge you have acquired in this field. This will be impressive as it will indicate that you have imagination and a real interest in the position you seek. Remember that it is not the lawyer who knows the most law, but the one who best prepares his case who wins. If your case is properly prepared and presented, your victory will have been more than half won at the outset. Do not be afraid of making your brief too long. Employers are just as much interested in purchasing the service of well qualified applicants as you are in securing employment. In fact, the success of most successful employers is due, in the main, to their ability to select qualified lieutenants. They want all the information available. Remember another thing, neatness in the preparation of your brief will indicate that you are a painstaking person. I have helped to prepare brief for clients which were so striking and out of the ordinary that they resulted in the employment of the application without a personal interview. When your brief has been completed, have it neatly bound by an experienced vendor and lettered by an artist or printer. Similarly to the following brief of the qualifications of Robert K. Smith, applying for the position of private secretary of the president of the blank company Inc. Changes names each time brief is shown. This personal touch is sure to command attention. Have your brief neatly typed or mimographed on the finest paper you can obtain and bound with a heavy black कहाँ जाएगा? With the heavy paper of the book cover variety. Blinder to be changed and the proper firm name to be inserted if it is to be shown to more than one company. Your photograph should be pasted on one of the pages of your brief. Follow these instructions to the letter, improving upon them wherever your imagination suggests. Successful salesmen groom themselves with care. They understand that first impressions are lasting. Your brief is your salesman. Give it a good suit of clothes, or it will stand out in bold contrast to anything your prospective employer ever saw. In the way of an application for a position, if the position you seek is worth having, it is worth going after with care. Moreover, if you sell yourself to an employer in a manner that impresses him with your individuality, you probably will receive more money for your services from the very start that you would if you applied for employment in the usual conventional way. If you seek employment through an advertising agency or an employment agency, have the agent use copies of your brief in marketing your services. This will help to gain preference for you both with the agent and the prospective employers. How to get the exact position you desire. Everyone enjoys doing the kind of work for which he is best suited. An artist loves to work with paints, a craftsman with his hands, a writer loves to write. Those with less definite talent have their preferences for certain fields of business and industry. If America does anything well, it offers a full range of occupation, tilling the soil, manufacturing, marketing, and the professions. First, decide exactly what kind of job you want. If the job doesn't already exist, perhaps you can create it. Second, choose the company or individual for whom you wish to work. Third, study your prospective employer as to policies, personnel, and chances of advancement. Fourth, by analyzing of yourself, your talents and capabilities, figure what you can offer and plan ways and means of giving advantages, services, deployments, ideas that you believe you can successfully deliver. Fifth, forget about a job. Forget whether or not there is an opening. Forget the usual routine or have you got a job for me. Concentrate on what you can give. Sixth, once you have your plan in mind, arrange with an experienced writer to put it on paper in neat form and in full detail. Seventh, present it to the proper person with authority and he will do the rest. Every company is looking for men who can give something of value, whether it be ideas, services, or connections. Every company has room for the man who has a definite plan of action which is to the advantage of that company. This line of procedure can take a few days or weeks of extra time, but the difference in income, in advancement, and in gaining recognition will save years of hard work at small pay. It has many advantages, the main one being that it will often save from 1 to 5 years of time in reaching a chosen goal. Every person who starts or gets in halfway up the ladder does so by deliberate and careful planning, accepting, of course, the boss son. The new way of marketing services jobs are now partnerships. Men and women who market their services to best advantage in the future must recognize the stupendous change which has taken place in connection with the relationship between employer and employee. In the future, the golden rule and not the rule of gold will be the dominating factor in the marketing of merchandise as well as personal services. The future relationship between employers and their employees will be more in the nature of a partnership consisting of the employer, the employee, the public they serve. This new way of marketing personal services now is called new for many reasons. First, both the employer and the employee of the future will be considered as fellow employees who business it will be to serve the public efficiently. In times past, employers and employees have bartered among themselves, driving the best bargains they could with one another, not considering that in the final analysis they were in reality bargaining at the expense of the third party, the public they served. The depression served as a mighty prospect from an injured public whose had been trampled upon in every direction by those who were clamoring for individual advantages and profits. When the debris of the depression shall have been cleared away and business shall have been once again restored to balance, both employers and employees will recognize that they are no longer privileged to drive bargain at the expense of those whom they serve. The real employer of the future will be the public. This should be kept uppermost in mind by every person seeking to market personal services efficiently. Nearly every railroad in America is in financial difficulty. Who does not remember the day when, if a citizen inquired at the ticket office the time of departure of a train, he was abruptly referred to the bulletin board instead of being politely given the information? The streetcar companies have experienced a change of times also. There was a time not so very long ago when streetcar conductors took pride in giving arguments to passengers. Many of the streetcar tracks have been removed and passengers ride on a bus whose driver is the last word in politeness. All over the country, streetcar tracks are resting from abandonment or have been taken up. Wherever streetcars are still in operation, passengers may now ride without argument, and one may even hail the car in the middle of the block, and the motorman will obligingly pick him up. How many times have changed? This is just the point I am trying to emphasize. Times have changed. Moreover, The change is reflected not merely in railroad offices and on streetcars, but in the other walks of life as well. The public be damned. Policy is now passe.